the older suburb of Crestwood, my days felt predictable yet comforting. I was Julia Thompson, a devoted mother and wife living with my husband Eric and his teenage son from his first marriage, Noah. Since Eric and I tied the knot and became a blended family, I had done my best to make Noah feel welcome in our home. As a single father, Eric shared custody with Noah's mother, and with every visit I felt the pressure and joy of being part of a family I wanted to nurture wholeheartedly. Noah was nearly 18, tall, athletic, and boyishly handsome. But what stood out most was his wit and sensitivity, which often left me in stitches. Our relationship was based on mutual respect. I cared deeply for him and wanted to be as much a friend as a stepmother. There's nothing like sharing laughter over board games and family film nights. But as time went on, I found myself noticing him in ways I shouldn't have. The energy was simmering beneath the surface as we mingled in everyday life. One particularly hot August afternoon, after preparing dinner and tidying up the house, I decided to spend some time relaxing in the bath. I filled our spacious Victorian-style bath with warm water, adding fragrant oils that filled the air with lavender. I slipped in and let the warmth wash over me as my body sank into luxuriously heated bliss. This was my sanctuary, my escape from the whirlwind of responsibilities, a moment to indulge in tranquility. Lost in my thoughts as I soaked, I rehashed the stresses of the week. Eric was working late, and Noah had decided to spend the evening with friends, leaving me with the blissful solitude I craved. The rhythmic sound of the water lulled me into a state of relaxation, and I almost dozed off, enjoying the moment of silence. Just then, I heard the door creak open. I opened my eyes to see Noah peeking in, shirtless and glistening with sweat, clearly having just come home. "Hey, Julia," he greeted, a playful smile spreading across his face. "What's up?" Startled at first, I quickly regained my composure. "Just trying to get out of the heat," I said, laughing nervously. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. His tone was casual, but there was a glint in his eyes that made my stomach flutter. Well, I stammered, my mind racing. I don't think that's—" "Don't worry," he laughed. "It's just a little tub, right? I'm sure it'll be fine." Before I could protest further, he stepped into the bathroom, and before I could say another word, he eased himself into the tub right next to me. The suddenness of it all sent a shockwave through me. Here we were together, skin almost touching, the intimacy of the moment igniting something unexpected between us. The water rippled as he sat down, splashing gently against my legs. It was exhilarating, and my heart was racing. "You know, this is a bit unconventional, Noah," I half joked, trying to maintain some form of authority. "Come on, it's just water," he laughed, leaning back against the cool porcelain as he made himself comfortable. The tension in the air was palpable, and I could barely breathe. The warmth between us mingled with the steam rising from the water, creating a dreamy atmosphere. I studied his features in the dim light, appreciating the boy who had grown into a handsome young man. The innocence I thought I saw in him had faded, replaced by a charisma that was incredibly magnetic. He caught me staring, and instead of flinching, he flashed his cheeky grin, a sign I wasn't prepared for. "What, you've never seen a guy in a bathtub before?" I chuckled nervously, trying to hide my embarrassment. "Not one that looks like you." It slipped out before I could catch myself, but Noah's grin only widened. "Should I be flattered?" he teased, leaning in a little closer. Feeling the rush of heat from embarrassment and desire, I took a deep breath. "Maybe it's just too hot outside and it's making me delirious," I replied, trying to deflect the escalating chemistry building in the air. He moved a little closer, and I couldn't help but notice the way his skin was glistening, droplets running down his arms. "You know, I've always thought you were pretty cool," he said, his voice deep and teasing. My heart raced as he looked at me, his eyes lingering just a little too long. It intoxicated me. Was he flirting? I felt the vulnerability of being seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. Thank you, Noah. That means a lot. The silence that followed was thick with unspoken words. I could feel the playful tension tugging at the edges of our conversation, and suddenly the atmosphere changed. A blush crept up my cheeks as I noticed his gaze drifting to my legs, the water lapping around us. "Your bath looks relaxing," he said, breaking the silence, his voice deeper than usual. "Would you like to share some tips?" Before I could answer, he slid back and leaned against the tub, the water cascading over his shoulders. I thought my heart would burst from the tension. "Well, you just have to let go," I managed to say, my voice slightly shaky. "Let go, huh?" he echoed, a hint of mischief in his voice. "Is that what this is?" "Is what?" I asked, my heart pounding as I tried to keep up with the playful but charged banter. "This," he gestured between us, closing the distance as our knees brushed together in the water. "I mean, you seem pretty relaxed. I'd like to enjoy something like that more often." Something shifted inside me at that moment. Maybe it was the intoxicating heat of the water, or maybe it was the thrill of the forbidden, but my heart raced at the implications of his words. "Noah, this is, wrong," I said, half-heartedly trying to re-establish a boundary. He cut me off. "It's just a bath, right?" But I was at a loss for words, unsure how to walk the line between mother figure and temptation. "Julia, come on," he said, locking eyes with me. "It can be whatever we want it to be." The bold statement hung in the air like a challenge, igniting a spark that sailed through the waters of hesitant longing. My mind raced with all the ways this could go wrong, yet my body ached to embrace it. "What are you saying?" I ventured, taking the plunge even as I struggled against the tides of propriety. "I'm saying I know there's something, I don't know, electric between us," he explained, leaning in a little closer again. "We could explore it if you like." The hesitation slipped through my fingers, and temptation wrapped itself around me like a warm blanket. My heart raced with anticipation, a wild taste of freedom and guilt. "Maybe I do want to explore it," I whispered, feeling the lure pull me closer. Before I could think, I reached out, my fingers lightly brushing his arm. The world around us disappeared, engulfed in the warmth and steam, our hearts beating in unison. The moment felt charged with a curiosity that had been simmering beneath the surface for far too long. "Noah," I said softly, my heart racing as I met his. "Are you sure you want to do this?" He smiled, the mischief returning, but there was something deeper, a sincerity that couldn't be ignored. "What can it hurt?" "It'll only take a moment," he said, closing the remaining gap between us with a boldness that surprised me. I leaned forward and captured his lips with mine. The kiss was gentle at first, but then it became desperate, an urgency that ignited our senses. I breathed him in, the boyish charm mixing with the longing we had both carefully suppressed. Noah's hands found my waist, pulling me closer as our kiss deepened, the water surrounding us lapping against our skin. I could feel the warmth radiating from us, lighting a spark that burned brighter with each touch. Everything else faded away in that moment, leaving only the heat between us. My head spun as I lost myself in the pleasure of the kiss, every nerve ending alive with a mixture of guilt and exhilaration. I had never dared to go down this road before, and yet it felt liberating, wild, and exhilarating. As we finally pulled apart, breathless and wide-eyed, reality crashed back in like an icy wave. I could barely process what had just happened. The thrill of the moment danced along my skin, but fear quickly settled in the pit of my stomach. "Noah, this can't be happening. What have we done?" I gasped, shaking as the weight of my actions settled over me. He looked at me with wide eyes, a mixture of disappointment and longing in his expression. "But it felt amazing, didn't it?" "I didn't want it to end," he admitted. I shook my head, fear gripping my heart. "We can't cross that line. What if Eric finds out? What if Noah's mum finds out?" His eyes dropped and his voice softened. "What about what we just shared? You can't deny there's something between us." I panicked. I had let things go too far. You have to promise me it was just a moment, Noah. Just a swim in forbidden waters, I pleaded, desperately wanting to believe it. But it wasn't just a swim, he replied, meeting my gaze. It felt real. I was at war with myself. My heart was beating against my better judgment, and I could still feel the heat of his body next to mine. Can't we just sit here for a second and figure this out? Noah insisted, pulling away slightly. This isn't right. I know it's not, Noah admitted, looking as conflicted as I felt. But I can't ignore how I feel about you either. The depth of his words sent a shiver down my spine. What do you mean? I mean, I've had feelings for you for a while now. I thought they'd go away, but they haven't, he confessed, a vulnerable edge tracing his voice. The honesty in his voice tugged at my heart, but my mind screamed caution. Noah, we can't go there. We would be crossing boundaries. I leaned back, the weight of my heart turning to full-blown fear as the gravity of our situation enveloped us. He breathed heavily, leaning back against the tub as if lost in thought. Maybe, or maybe it's worth exploring, he offered, his voice hopeful. The conflict stretched between us, heated yet tender. I was filled with a longing that felt undeniable, the security of my existing life clashing with a burgeoning desire for something more. I don't know, I murmured, looking into his eyes, searching for clarity amidst the chaos of emotions swirling inside me. Should we even be talking about this? Why not? He asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. We're already here. At that moment, as the water rippled around us, I felt something snap. I was on the edge of my emotions. What if I allowed myself to discover the depths of this connection? I thought to myself. Let's agree to keep things to this moment, Noah, I suggested, feeling a thrill run through me. Just tonight. He nodded, and my heart raced at the thought, knowing that our lives had just moved into an area from which we could never return. The heat of the night signaled that nothing would ever be the same again. As we surrendered to the spontaneity of our reckless adventure, submerged in the depths of the bathtub, recklessness swept over us. That night became our secret, a cherished plunge into the unknown waters of desire while teetering on the edge of social taboo. The search for connection turned into a daring dance, creating a fantasy that would linger in our hearts forever, splashing the edges of my reality. Little did I know how our paths would intertwine from that moment on, two souls exploring the complexities that lay beneath the surface, leaving our mark on each other forever as we navigated the waves of consciousness in our sacred bubble of secrecy.